Hi, I'm Kirsten Fishburn. I'm the director here, and I'm the chair of this In Conversation. We've got a very small group here, but we are recording it, so we'll make sure that this wonderful conversation will get out further across the interwebs. I'm just going to introduce our people who are talking today. Toni Bailey is our curator at Casula Powerhouse. She was the curator for the on-site exhibition. Prior to that, she was the gallery manager at Grant Peary and program manager at Canberra Contemporary Art Space and curator of public programs at Craft ACT. Jenny Evans on the end is a press and documentary photographer who fell into photography by accident. I don't know how you fall into a camera, but it's intriguing, in the late 90s, and has started working as a professional photographer in 2001. Everything revolves around photography for Jenny. Her highlight of her career was winning the World Press Photo for Sports feature stories with her husband Mark, who is also a press photographer. Jenny currently works as a contributor for Fairfax and was one of the commissioned artists for the on-site exhibition. Richard Lure in the middle is an artist working in painting, drawing, video and animation. He's integrated athletic training into his practice, which has culminated in performances incorporating boxing, wood chopping and table tennis. If you were not doing this a bit later, you could go to the Easter show and show off your skills there. Since the early 90s, he's exhibited widely in Australia and overseas, and is currently artist in residence at the Fremantle Arts Centre. He's also very involved in sports and athleticism, including being a member and trainer at boxing fitness gyms, a member of the lawn tennis club, that's more my speed, surfs weekly and has also taken up fishing. So we're going to talk about some of the themes and challenges of putting together an exhibition about women in sport. I'm going to open this by saying, you know, this was originally my baby. When I came to Casula Powerhouse, we'd done a lot of projects with the NRL. There were lots of men everywhere, basically. Lots and lots of images of semi-naked football players and a general prevailing sense of blokiness. Aside from the fact that, you know, I thought that there is topics to explore around women in sport, I also really wanted to redress some of the gender balance as the first woman director here. However, initially I don't think the project was received with the same enthusiasm by my staff. But I remember when Toni had it somewhat thrust upon her, if I remember correctly, there was some eye rolling, but you did come round. Toni, what did you think were the challenges? What would be the challenges in curating this exhibition?
Initially, I guess I thought it would end up being quite dry. You know, you just throw two subjects together, just talk about something, two things that don't, from the outside, look like they fit very well together. And I thought it would be very hard as well, difficult to find artwork to fit the theme. So I think it was a bit of a grimace more than an eye roll. Sort of, and it was the faces people pull when you say to them, they say, what's coming up? Oh, it's a show about women in sport. And they're like, these are people in the art world. Because you can't quite imagine what that's going to look like. But it didn't take very long. It took me like 2 days, and all the works here are works that I'd seen already around pretty much. And could, you know, I just had to remember them and say, oh yeah, that fits, and actually that fits, and I ended up with too many artists and not enough artist space.
So the nature of contemporary gallery management.
So it wasn't as hard as I thought, and neither was it dry, and it was actually a really slippery subject where you get right to the heart of some juicy issues that, you know, art's the perfect medium to talk about these things.
I know exactly what you mean about the grimace, because I obviously speak to my fellow directors all the time, and they say, what have you got coming up at Casula next? And I'll say, oh, we're doing something on women in sport. They're like, oh, well, that's Casula for you. And without, you know, any sense of attempting to engage with it at all. Richard, your work has engaged with sport. Have you got some of that grimace and eye roll from the arts community?
Kind of. I mean, my whole thing is the experience, you know, like I'm involved in sports from years ago, and really when I did my Masters in 2000, I decided to actually put it into a gallery sort of context, and I chopped a piece of wood in half, and that's, you know, like I went out to another sort of subculture. I went out to wood chopping. I had a trainer, he could chop a piece of wood in half in 27 seconds, like 27 minutes. And I just realised the integrity, the strength, the skill that this person had, and the sport that. So, you know, but that was a catalyst moment that actually brought it physically into the gallery, and I still have photos of people wearing the headgear, and it was all health and safety, and it was kind of like this bizarre sort of moment that it just really was like a car crash together. And from that, I hated my BCA Masters year, so I was born out of frustration and physical frustration as well. But from that, it led on to other performances, boxing performances, table tennis, a whole lot of interests of sport and art started to really sort of generate through that time. So it was fantastic in the end.
And you've never had that reaction with people, taking your work less seriously because it deals with sporting themes or has a sporting element?
Not really, no, I don't think so. I think there's become more popular, if anything. You have competitions now, like the Basil Sellers, that have put that at the forefront, and that's my criticism of it now. It becomes quite fashionable when you look around now that lots of artists are doing sport and art, and my criticism is that a lot of it's from observation and not actually participation. And when there's $100,000 up for grabs, people will do anything for it. They will just launch themselves into it. But for me, it's a continuation, and I'll make work about sport for as long as it's challenging and enjoyable.
Great.
And I'm involved in it.
Jenny, do you find there's a hierarchy in the world of photography? Are sports photographers a lesser breed than news snappers, or?
Actually, I'd have to say yes. And where I did notice this the most was at the World Press Photo exhibition in Amsterdam, whereas I was so excited to be a part of it, but I did sense just a little bit of snobbery from, say the hardcore news war photographers who kind of dismiss sport as not important, and it was kind of trivialised a little bit. I've actually got a fellow photographer and very good friend, Tim Clayton, who has won 8 World Presses for sport, who now is saying we should start our own competition with just sport, because he does feel like, that it isn't taken seriously, and it's probably not as dangerous as war photography, although my husband might disagree because he's been knocked over by a football player, which I have photos of. But it's still it's still something. It's a skill, and you have to put in long hours. It's grueling. You have to know your sport. It's different, but I do sense that it's not taken, as seriously as other forms of photography.
One of the things that Tony and I got very excited about as this exhibition was coming together was the number of artists who responded back to say, oh, thank goodness you're doing an exhibition on this topic, it's really exciting, and they really were enthused. It was quite interesting, the arts elite were very critical, but the artists themselves were actually very engaged. Jenny, when you first heard about this project and you were asked to be involved with it, what did you think about the idea of exploring women in sport through arts? Because you haven't had an arts background, so...
I was so excited. I basically felt like I wanted to jump up and down on the, bounce up and down on the chair. I thought it would be... I think initially I just thought, oh, great, I can break all the rules of press photography. But then when I sort of went into it a bit deeper, it was actually an opportunity for me to express myself through art and sport, as opposed to following a brief where you just sort of shoot the moment. So it was a really exciting, and it was also fulfilling in the sense that it gave you a lot longer with your subject, and you got a little bit more time with your subject and come to understand it a little bit better. So it's a great experience.
Richard, I love that you say your personal mantra is skill, discipline, training, and that's in fact the name of the work that we've got on display here as part of Onside. I need to tell, because I'm not sure Richard has heard this story yet before, when we had the Governor-General visiting, she went round and looked at all the works, and she had 3 very boofy police officers from the Australian Federal Police, and afterwards I said to them, oh, did you enjoy the exhibition? They said, oh yeah, overall, but that video was the most disturbing thing I have ever seen. And I thought, if you can disturb 3 Australian Federal Police officers, So obviously you're not scared of delving into the nitty-gritty and the dark side of sport and participation. Can you talk a little bit about that video work and what themes you wanted to play with around it?
Yeah, like the thing is with that particular work, like I'm really interested in crime as well, so sport and crime are both passions of mine. One I can participate in, one I kind of can, but like, I have to leave the crime a little bit over there. But I was really interested in a criminal in Melbourne that would collect ponytails, and I sort of had the character in mind that what he would have to go through with the idea of stalking, physically stalking, and then the actual mental and physical skill, the training involved in actually participating in that, and the obsessiveness. And I kind of like the idea that artists are like that as well. You know, like a sports person, you've got to be self-driven, you've got to be obsessed, and so that's why it's called skill, discipline, and training. But this at the time I was making that animation, there was an arrest of a swimming coach, and so I kind of, you know, in a way, the coach sort of became a gymnastic coach. And one big thing about when I did a boxing performance in 2000, the biggest part of that whole performance I did was my coach, the corner man, was the biggest influence in the fight. Like there was 400, 500 people at the opening, and I could just hear Morris's voice and the trust that I had to give him. So I sort of turned it around on that, and he became the perpetrator, but in a way he was a sad, pitiful man. And then these women, and the gymnastics women were these wonderful, fit women, really goal-setting women. So I like that sort of dichotomy between the two, but I like telling stories within my work, so the animation served as this narrative. And it is a creepy little story.
It's very creepy.
When Tony emailed me about the show, I was like, "Did you get the wrong email?" Because I'm a man in a women's show, and I felt that was quite bizarre. But then I thought, no, this is an interesting piece to put in it, because it takes it on another journey, another way, and there is a dark side to sport. I mean, just look what's happening now with the doping, with the rugby league and AFL, and you know, it's a fascinating thing to talk about.
Well, I mean, pretty much a golden time for you if you're interested in sport and crime together. I mean, that's the whole dialogue at the moment, really, isn't it? Jenny, your work, on the other hand, is very inspiring and motivating, and and that was I think, when you talk about some of the intention of the work. Can you talk about the process, why you decided to explain what your works are, and why you decided to create them, and the process you went through?
Oh, okay. Initially, I thought I'd like to photograph 6 different women and 6 different sports. I chose boxing purely because I absolutely love boxing, to watch it, to photograph it. So it was just purely a personal thing. My first protocol was the Mundine Gym, where I met Eleanor Bowden, the lady that I photographed. And once I met her, I felt like I couldn't photograph anyone else. She was really, really diverse. I found the area of Redfern very interesting. So I just thought it lent itself to a whole series, and plus I could be a bit more intimate and, do sort of, get really into the nitty-gritty of boxing. So my work too, it's several images layered together. I'd photographed the textures in Redfern, some of the textures of the building, and just overlay them on top of the photos of the people, and just sort of, or of Eleanor, and just sort of jiggle them around and see how it worked. And it just created a really interesting sort of outcome. Some of the pictures actually look like paint, and it was quite interesting. It was good fun.
We've talked before, and you've certainly talked about how important the project was for you. What made it so special and important?
I think for me, I guess I wanted people to see the importance of sport for women and for a community. So I just wanted to give that positive aspect, because the Mundine Gym, for me, it was a real safe haven. It's the block where I photographed it. It's sort of been an area that's, there's been a lot of turmoil in the past, but that block the gym in the block has stayed, kind of like a safety zone for everyone. So I just wanted that positive aspect to come through, and for people to to see that gym the way I saw it. And from the day one that I sort of started photographing, I've always felt really welcome there. I've always, I've never felt threatened, and it's just a really great environment. So, and Eleanor, my subject, is really inspiring. She's a really brilliant young lady. So I sort of wanted, I wanted that to shine through with the project.
Great. Tony, you've obviously taken lots of people on tours of the exhibition now. That's, an inevitable part of the job, and spoken to lots of people about it. What type of response? I'm particularly interested because we've had so many sports people in the centre, which wouldn't be something we would normally have, people who are, engaged in sport a lot, unless it's the NRL launch. What has their reaction been to the exhibition? Do they see a benefit from it? Do they see the how do they respond to it?
I think initially people are really looking for a lot of positive affirmation, a lot of a celebration of women and our high achieving athletes and women's bodies, and I get a bit nervous that they're going to think, not all of it's positive, not all of it's a celebration. And the response has been pretty good, actually. People have been remarkably open to it. Richards gets a little cringe.
I might add, that's always last on the tour. Yours and Ponch Hawks, which I think are the two most challenging works, always end up.
I'm glad that you've just told me this now.
Yeah.
Just as I'm coming.
But I think if it evokes
think
any
it's good.
response, then it's really succeeded. If people are engaging with it and having an emotional or whatever response, then that's fantastic. So, yeah, it's people have been a lot more open to it than I thought they would. Yeah.
Did you shift any of your thinking while you've been putting it together and speaking to people?
From what I thought it might be in the beginning.
Yeah, and how you thought about curating something like this. I mean, the eye roll was there, the grimace was there.
Of course, yeah. What it's really done is make me realise that art is, the best place to have those, what I was saying before, those interesting discussions. And I think that's because you can touch on sensitive issues, and you can do it without being too explicit or beating people over the head about it, but it gives people a way of talking about it. And hearing some people speak today being really positive about women's sport, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sure you've got a lot of negative things you could say as well, but people are sort of shying away from it a little bit. This is just my take on it. Whereas artists aren't going to be shy to say, point out the dark side. And that's what I've come away with, is that, it's the best place to talk about these things is in the arts.
Richard, we've got one of your works to show, and we might run that, and then I want to ask you about what you've learnt from being involved in the sport that comes into your art, because that's one of the themes that seem to have come up as well.
Okay.
So we'll roll. So we're running this off the website, so...
That's not it.
No, this is the one which you want to show. Is that it?
Yeah, this one.
This man, ladies and gentlemen, we can welcome Coolhand Brooks and across the ring with expertise, provided by the Northside Gymnasium with Maurice in the corner, proudly wearing the Northside top. This man, ladies and gentlemen, wearing orange trunks, lurid orange trunks. From Hamilton, North Island, New Zealand, now resident of Westcott, 31 years of age, giving away 3 kilograms, he's 65 kgs. Ladies and gentlemen, the Leonardo da Vinci of boxing, the Nick Fury, let's get ready to rumble! The boxing for the undisputed world artists junior middleweight championship. And this is the what I say, and the way what I say, I'll disqualify. Right, shake hands, and away we go. You have it! Round one.
Stop?
Yeah.
So we've lost sound, but that's all right.
Oh
We
no,
can-
it's meant to go off.
It's
'cause
meant to go off.
He's not got it. But I mean, it's, you see that.
I mean, that's
Yeah. I guess what I wanted to do is I've never been hit before, I've had phone calls before, never gone into boxing before. So I want to put myself in a most extreme situation as an artist, and I just went to the closest gym.
I was really frightened. I was saying I've never been.
I stayed there for 6 months, and I
never
challenged the
felt
artist
like
Luke
fear.
Sinclair to the boxing match as
Like,
well.
welling up inside.
So we didn't have any contact for that 6 months, and we
At the
both
end of
did our
that
individual
fight,
training. So what you don't see in
they'll
that
hug
fight
each
is
other.
all what you had to go through to get
And-
into the
and then they
ring,
come
the
back to the corner,
survival,
and then they hug you.
the friendships, the relationship, and the fraternity of the
Yeah.
actual boxing gym.
That's about the
you
best thing to
became
train,
sort
yeah.
of, I lived and breathed it. You know, 5 o'clock in the morning, I trained for a couple of nights,
That trust,
professional boxers.
that
So
respect,
they became into
that
my world
connection
as an artist,
with
and I was in
someone,
their world, and it was, it's
you
probably
know,
the best
is
thing
just unparalleled with anything else
and,
I've ever
a
experienced.
few years ago,
And I
got
didn't
into
realise
the,
that it would
the
be
social
quite that
committee of
powerful.
Northside Boxing, and then I became a trainer at that gym, and I've continued training and helping boxers now. So if an artwork can do that, it doesn't get any better than that. And I mean, it's just the raw honesty of hopping into a boxing ring. Like Luke wanted a winner or a loser, which I didn't want, but because he was an integral part of the performance, I had to sort of say, okay. And we had, you know, referees, and he had to get his weight down and things like that. So it became a big, you know, and then a documentary was made about it. So it became way bigger than my idea of, hey, it'd be really great to sort of get involved in a boxing sort of work. It wasn't about, it didn't, you know, like the boxing ring was made of, you know, cotton duck canvas, and his nose and the blood was all over it. It was this expressionistic piece, but at the same time it went further than any artwork could sort of go in a way, a visual artwork, because it was about the relationship. Like I said, my corner man, you saw how many people were there and how noisy it was, but I just heard Morris's voice just kind of going, you can just go out there and show them what we've learned. And I really wanted to knock Luke out. I really wanted to. But Morris's voice was just like, let's move them around. You know, you look like a complete asshole if you actually knock the guy out again. Because he realised very quickly I was a better boxer. You know, and yeah, it was, like I said, it's the best thing I've ever done.
And obviously, all sports have an inherent performative aspect, which you know you can argue can be an art form in itself, and a lot of the works kind of capture some of that as well in the exhibition. But what makes that art as opposed to you being a boxer? Is it because you're an artist doing it?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because like even at the boxing gym they said that, they go, why can you show that, and why can you get this many people there, and why, you know, like the professional boxers were saying that as well. And I guess in a way there's no hard fast answer, but yes, I'm an artist and I took it on as an art piece, and I recognised the skill of the boxers, that it can be this art piece, and the most extreme sense as well. But yeah, it's a fine line that you cross, because Luke said from day one it was never going to be an art thing for him. He took it like a fight, and I took it like a fight, but it started as this art performance thing. You know, you saw people sort of sipping away on their champagne, and then very immediately they went, hey, this is real, this is actually, they're hurting one another, this is uncomfortable. And I know many people that walked out of there, they said, I don't want a bar of it, you know, which is kind of bizarre when the truth was too much in a way. You know, the honesty was, too much.
I love, I mean, the whole concept of this skill, discipline and training, obviously. I mean, you spent 6 months training for that particular work. We all know artists, a lot of them don't necessarily have the same dedication to their development of their work. Has that immersion in sport given you something as an artist as well? Yeah,
like, I mean, that's one big thing. Like, I'm a full-time artist. I've been full-time for, I don't know, 15 years. So, but like, I have a routine. I go to the studio every day, just like I go to that gym every day, and I do that. And that's something that that's probably why I was a better boxer. You know, Luke would probably argue that, but it would be a good argument. But, you know, it's a similar thing, absolutely, you know. And you talk about, well, like the last talk before about failure and things like that, they exist as an artist. Like, I fail all the time in the studio every day. Paintings fail, you know, like I could have set that up, and then if I got knocked out, would that be a complete failure that it was my work? And it didn't even enter my head until I hopped into that ring. I thought, oh, this would go horribly wrong. You know, I could look like
aside from the brain damage, the broken nose, like that.
Yeah, you know, I could look so stupid, but you know, but it was that mental preparation as well, and it's great.
I know, Jenny, you say you love the biff, don't you? That's the thing that appeals to you in sport.
I mean, initially when I had to write something about, you know, and ask the question, what is it that I love about sport? I'm so embarrassed. All I could come up with was, I love rugby league games when the players smash into each other. Or I love boxing where, you know, the contact, I just love it. And I thought, oh no, am I really shallow? What's going on here? But, you know, photographing Eleanor was a great experience for me, because there were so many aspects of it that are more important than entertainment. You know, and I saw the long grueling hours that she put in, and I just have I have a really strong respect for boxing now, and probably a lot of other sports, just seeing the hard work that goes in. And it's interesting what you were saying with the crossing over, because I actually, Eleanor persuaded me to take up boxing as well, which I've since taken up. I go down to the Mundine gym about two days a week and box the bags. I haven't got into a full-on fight yet.
Well, Richard's going.
I bought my gloves on.
I have actually got in the ring with my husband, but we laughed so hard we couldn't even make contact. And everyone else in the gym laughed too. But I think too, with me boxing as well, and getting down there and bashing away on the bags, I think people relaxed around me a lot better, and it just gave you the opportunity to sort of get into the project more than just sort of walking in, taking photos and then leaving. So it's been a really good experience. Yeah.
Similar to asking Richard when you're a boxer and when you're an artist. You're obviously an internationally renowned sports photographer, you know, and you were shooting Eleanor as a sportswoman. Yeah. But you talk about there was something different, and was it just the time of the process? What made that an art project, and what is that difference?
I think I did question that aspect too. You know, it baffled me a bit. I'm like, well, what is art? And the only thing I can really come up with is that it's something that I love and have taken so much pride in and put so much of myself into it. That's the only sort of way I can think, to describe that process.
Skill, discipline, training again. Tony, why do you think artists respond to sporting issues?
I was still back with Jenny thinking, oh, the difference will probably be that you'll get paid for taking sports photography. Sorry. For now. It's not forever. No. What was the question?
Why do you think artists engage with these issues? And you know, you did say you found it relatively easy to find a wealth of material.
Oh, because sport's so huge here. They're all Australian artists. They've all grown up with sport all around them, in their face every day on TV, I think. And it's something that sport really drums up a lot of emotion, and generally when you watch a game or you're at a game, we don't tend to be that expressive as a people, I don't think, and you can be publicly expressive and scream and shout. So I think it's fairly evocative as a subject. Yeah.
And I'm interested that some of the works that you've chosen really respond to the aesthetics of sport as well. So, you know, the look of movement or the feel, or did you find that was a theme that kept coming through with artists?
A little bit. And I can relate, you know. I wanted to play badminton because I liked the court, and there's something about all the aesthetics that go along with it. I don't know. I haven't taken up boxing, so I don't...
You're feeling a bit isolated here on the band.
I am.
Totally. No, I'm not boxing. No, I verbally box. That's different. Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting though, like with the artists, like we've just put on a show in Fremantle, which Inside Running, and we sort of had a talk the other night, and it was interesting that a lot of artists' work wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about the general sort of idea of sport. It was other more interesting things. It was about the negative space. It was about this just going deeper within the psychology of sport, the social implications of sport, and it was fascinating that it wasn't what we perceive as sport and the general sort of, you know, crossing the line and the heroic images of what we do see as sport in the sort of mainstream culture. And that was an interesting part, you know. It's helping to sort of curate the show. We had no idea what we're getting until the week beforehand, but really, you know, everyone sort of really delved into their own sort of personal history of sport rather than, you know, like I said, the winning or losing or, you know, the AFL sort of side of sport.
So it was that they'd grown up in a sporting culture, and as a consequence...
I mean, we tried to put a show together that involved people that were involved in sports, you know, they were playing the game sort of thing, and it was interesting because a lot was either from memory or, you know, like looking back, or sort of involved in like an actual club and then making work based around that, or their own physical body involved into a landscape or into the actual sporting arena.
Can I ask, was there, because obviously we put on an exhibition about women in sport, it's a you know, potent topic, but many of the works that Tony selected, they don't necessarily speak overtly to that. Have you found working in the sporting world, obviously boxing is still quite gendered, do they tease out issues around women's involvement, or?
No, not really. It's across the board, really. I'm just thinking of the women. There's a professional diver in the show, and there's the Mangano twins, which they work with. You know, I guess it's their own sort of movement and a very Tai Chi, very meditative sort of state within their work. But, you know, I wouldn't classify that as just sort of women's sport. I just have you know, it's a very general sort of thing. I don't, you know, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, it has been fascinating listening to people speak today and throughout the course of the exhibition, and so many people who are involved in the sporting world have talked about how important it is to have this exhibition because it inspires young women, which was always something that we hoped, but it's not a very overt, you know, way. So I think it's potentially just getting the messages out there. I mean, when you talked to Eleanor, how did you experience her engagement as a young woman playing sport and the idea of being photographed and, you know, it become an artwork as a part of it?
I think basically she loved it. She loved being photographed. She loved being a part of it. Actually, I shouldn't say that. In the beginning, we didn't have a lot of dialogue over it, but I think once she started seeing the direction that the work was going, and every day I'd taken photos that I'd shot, so I think once she saw what I was actually doing, she became very comfortable with the whole thing. But I was just thinking about the comments you were making earlier about the gender thing. When I was getting to the end of the project with Eleanor, I thought, oh no, have I missed something here? Like I've never actually said to her, how do you feel being a woman in a male world? Because, you know, basically I've met a few girls that go down to the Mundine gym, but it is, you know, like 95% men. And I actually didn't feel uncomfortable at any time, but, you know, I thought I'd better ask her this, you know, how do you feel? Has it been really difficult for you? And she said, no, I want to be a boxer. I don't even think about it. And I thought that was quite an interesting statement, because when I first started shooting sport, especially rugby league, I was the only girl in the press box. And I got asked a question once when I was interviewed, and a guy said to me, so do you come across, you know, are people chauvinistic, and do you have any problems? And I actually sort of got a bit gruff with him. I'm like, no, not at all. You know, like, I'm a photographer. I don't, you know, okay, I might be in a man's world, but I've never had an issue, because I knew I wanted to be a photographer and photograph that sport. So it was interesting hearing Eleanor say that too, because it is a very blokey world, and boxing for females in New South Wales only became legal in 2008. So
It's huge.
Are there more women sports photographers now, or are you still?
There are, but it's still predominantly men.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard throughout the forum that, even in sporting administration, there's no women really. So it doesn't surprise me that that's
which is great, because all the more for me. I love rugby league, and you know, if I just find the majority of female photographers don't want to go and shoot rugby league. I don't know why, but it's interesting.
Tony, Richard mentioned something that you were surprised when you first got invited, firstly because your work's so creepy that it scares police officers, and secondly because you're a man. And now, I don't think Tony and I ever had a conversation about should we only show women artists, or should we show men or women artists. Was that, did you even think about that, Tony, or did you see any difference in the type of works you were getting?
No, I didn't. I did think it's not very many guys in the show. I didn't ever think it was wrong to have, of course. But we didn't talk about it.
No.
And you weren't the token male.
Yeah.
Just so you know. You weren't sort of an afterthought. It was one of the first works I thought of was, could include this work. So it just naturally happened, I think.
So do you think, certainly there's some artists that are working here that are very explicitly working in this theme, so Ponch Hawks and Anza Hauker. Do you think it is something that women artists are more likely to engage with? Is there a feminist agenda behind their deliberating in this area, or they just love sport and want to tease it out?
I'm not sure. I think if this exhibition's anything to go by, it's certainly received more media attention than most exhibitions we do, and that's purely because it's got sport in there.
Yep.
So they'd probably be smart to do a bit more.
Well, the Basil Sellers, 100,000,
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's a very topical subject at the moment, and artists are responding to what's happening around them, I guess. But I don't know that it's that strategic. I think they're just following. There are artists in the show that have always made work about sport, like you say, and they always will. I think, that's their thing.
Yeah, that's there.
Yeah.
But it's a growth area at the moment, obviously.
Yeah.
If people are.
It does. It seems to be quite fashionable and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just another. It's just fascinating to get into, and all sort of across the board, really. I was just going to say with Jenny's comment before, it's like a young boxer that I'm training at the moment, Sophie, and she's 19, she's 65 kilos, and she's quite tall, and she's going to box tomorrow, so I'm going back to watch her box. She looked her first fight, and it's been amazing training her, and sort of like in a male-dominated sort of gym as well. And I sort of asked her the other day, and she just said she couldn't even understand my questions. She said, "Why would I feel different? Why, you know?" And I have to spar her too, and it's quite interesting. I don't treat her differently to any of the guys, and it's quite fascinating the different sort of training of thought that goes on with that. It's a real challenge, but it's fantastic. I just think she's a brilliant boxer.
I'm interested in what the people that you box with, who are boxers or who are learning boxing, think about you as an artist. I mean, I think we had the experience where the arts community rolled their eyes at this exhibition, and then we went and started speaking to the sports community, who were, I mean, I want to go and work in sports next. They were gracious, they were enthusiastic, they were, you know, don't necessarily get all the works, you know, they'll tell you that, but they were very open to what we were attempting to do, and the fact that it's very contemporary art as well. It's not, you know, we're not pulling any punches, to use the endless boxing metaphor now. What response do you get as an artist?
I just get the most honest, like when the boxers come to the show. I was just saying this to Tony before, everyone else is, you know, the general art crowd normally sit around and they, you know, drinking. Those guys don't drink. They go out to the work, they spend a good 40 minutes there, and they go, Rash, and they go, that's my boxing name, the Rash, so they go, come over here, and then they pick it to pieces. They absolutely pull the piece, and you go, you could have done that better. I think maybe that over there should be moved, and just really open and direct. And you've sort of got to take a reality check on it too, and it's just that dialogue and that instant I don't know, just response to the work is so refreshing. And it's always been like with that. With my biggest critics, they always say my beret's on too tight, or they just give me shit the whole time, which is quite nice, you know. But then they realise that I just train just as hard as them. I you know, give back all the time, and you know, just a integral part of the makeup of the gym, basically. But yeah, I love it when they come along to the shows. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Jenny, did you get a positive response from, you know, if you just talk to colleagues in the kind of sporting and photography world, that you were branching out into arts? I know that journalists can be a bit harsh on, you know, any creative endeavour. I
got quite a good feedback. I think mostly people were shocked because it's different to anything I've sort of ever done before. And there was also curiosity as well. You know, people were saying, how do you do that? What'd you do? Tell me how to do it. But yeah, I think I got really positive feedback, or at least to my face, anyway. But no, it's been good being able to cross over and do something different.
Fantastic. I think I'll throw open to questions now, if anyone's got any questions. Coming to the end of the afternoon, and I know people get tired. Got questions?
Oh, actually, they're in the same weight division too, I think. And Eleanor's having trouble finding sparring partners.
Wow, perfect.
Yeah.
Quite
Richard, I
amazing.
think we set up wrestling rings down here, so there's no reason why we can't set up a boxing ring.
It'd be fantastic.
I'm not sure if it's a question or kind of just a comment. Working as an academic with a wife who works in the arts, sort of the mixture of the two is something that I've kind of come to sort of be aware of when performing a piece together. And I just think it's a really great way that sort of the arts can help sort of pull apart some of these issues within sports. And open it up to new audiences. When we did a conference paper, and I had people in the audience that hated sports and that would not go and watch a sports match. But by bringing this sort of forward element to it, at the end they came out thinking, I actually enjoyed that. The sport's not so bad as perhaps they thought it would be. They still thought it was a bunch of idiots and crowds and all that. But yeah, you can help see how it presented. So just what do you think of the future for this combination of sort of art and sport, and where it can go and how it can benefit both? And especially, I guess, in terms of the issues that are inherent within sport.
When someone earlier today spoke about, I hope that next year the theatre's full. I was like, next year.
Yeah, next year.
We're doing this again. It just, and also speaking at lunchtime, I don't want to know more of these figures about, you know, the lack of representation of women's sport in the media. It's so depressing. It's already depressing working with, you know, in the arts. It's just such a hard slog for artists, and you know, we were researching, trying to find some clips of sporting moments, but of course it costs $60 a second to show it, so we had to abandon that. So we thought we'd just go with a few stories of female athletes, and we looked at Australian stories, and there was only 2 episodes dedicated to women athletes. There was 2. That was it. Great stories, but it's just depressing. I don't want to do this again.
So aside from depressing, Tony,
The future,
Yeah.
the combination. Well, we've talked about that a little bit with, you know, Basil Sellers helps, the $100,000 prize.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if that didn't exist, what would happen. But like I personally, from the show that we just put on Fremantle, we were getting the numbers were 300 a day, and the combination of the art and sport was great because it crosses, you know, all boundaries, and we were getting a whole mixture of different people, and I think in a way that was really positive, but it can be pushed a whole lot further, and I just think that it's a really exciting place to go if that's where your passion you know is. You know, you can't do it sort of falsely, and I just think it's so riveting and exciting going into different subcultures, whether or not, you know, and it's about being uncomfortable as an artist. I love being totally uncomfortable and challenged all the time, and you know, scared out of my wits. I love it. You know?
I think from the perspective of a director of an art centre, it's a gold mine for, you know, it's nobody else is currently really engaging with this topic, at least in New South Wales, because there is still a real snootiness around it. But from our perspective, it gets us in new audiences who would never normally come. They'll come to see works that, you know, that they can relate to and engage with, particularly for schools groups. We had 250 school girls here last Friday, both hearing from women's sports people, inspirational women's sports people, trying sports, but they also toured the exhibition, and that's a really powerful thing for me. I think it doesn't matter why people walk through the door, as long as they walk through the door, they're forced to look at some art, you know, and something's going to click. I personally think for us in Southwest Sydney, it's very important we deal with these issues because it's a very big sporting community in Southwest Sydney, and if we want to be true to our community, we need to engage with what engages our community. I must agree with Tony that we'll have to take a deep breath before we go down here again, but it's been one of our, certainly it's been our most critically received, positively critically received exhibition that we've done for quite some time. So I think there is a real hunger out there for being able to merge sport and art and have conversation about the two and bring the two together. I think audiences have a real hunger for it. Whether the arts is up to the task is another question. Yeah.
For my sins, I've been scanning the new national cultural policy that was released earlier this week, and thinking back to Creative Nation, the previous one, 1994, pretty much the only mention of sport is to complain that it takes all the sponsorship dollars off the ground. And the new version is a bit more positive about sport, and actually says that art could learn something from sport in its being more comfortable with high performance amateurism and fandom than artists. We mentioned the snootiness, which one tends to get in art circles to some degree, about sport and other forms of popular culture. So I just wonder what the panel feel there, that perhaps the relationship between sport and art is actually changing, that some of the divisions, some hierarchies, and some might be kind of gradually breaking down with a more open attitude to what constitutes culture rather than high art, low art.
Do you want to speak? I mean, I would certainly agree with you that there is that breakdown, that there is more of an appreciation about both the artistry of sport and the discipline of art. So, you know, that there is a sense that the two disciplines have got similarities as well as obviously differences, and that they also share audiences, that you can enjoy Marla and also AFL. You know, they're not mutually exclusive, and I think that's interesting. I agree that the arts community can learn something from the sporting community about, yes, appreciating that, you know, there are different ways of engaging and entering. But likewise, I think the sports community can learn something from the arts community about openness and inclusivity that I think sometimes the arts does very well. But I mean, the artists and will have a better sense of what they think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I see the things crossing over all the time, and I think that's, like I said before, it's pretty exciting. They're quite obviously crossing over as well. When we just took a tour of the Fremantle lawn tennis through the Arts Centre, and it was great that then a couple of them are enrolled in a couple of courses because they've always wanted to do watercolours. It might not be what I'm interested in, but all of a sudden, they've got an interest in the arts, and that's fantastic. I think that's a huge success in a way. Or the president of our boxing gym asked me, he really wants to draw his dog and how to go about it. And so I sort of, okay, so
we all have our life passions.
Yeah. So here I was after boxing one Sunday, sort of helping him draw his dog, which was fantastic.
Oh, and can I just say, Eleanor now does a little bit of photography.
Well,
mainly with the iPhone, but she's taken up a real interest. Like you'll see little pictures from her, of people sparring at the gym, which is quite flattering that she, she's just gone, okay, I'm going to take photos. So it's been good.
I think it's that partly that's acceptance too, that a well-rounded life has many aspects to it. I was joking about it before, but we do genuinely have the wrestling in here in the Turbine Hall, and it's I asked them, is it sport wrestling or is it entertainment wrestling? They said it's kind of in the middle, but more towards the entertainment. And I thought, well, that's a cultural artefact. Why should it not be in an arts centre? And I think just being really open to that and saying that yes, you can enjoy the wrestling, and at the same time you can also enjoy a wonderful exhibition that Tony or our curator Adam put on in the galleries, and that's actually part of having a really rich life. It's not any different.
It's obvious that the community engagement component of this whole project was really valuable, and there's some immediate positive effects. I'm just wondering, during the process, were there any unexpected things that happened? So you sort of have an idea, you have a strong, clear vision of how you're going to tackle something, and you are prepared to experiment. But often for you as artists, there's just this unexpected thing that happens in the community, what they take up, what they come to you with, instead of you going out to them and wanting that they come to you. Is there anything that was a surprise for either of you as artists in that engagement process?
I guess in a way, I just finished the wall drawing at the Fremantle Arts, which was a big life-size drawing of the gym in Melbourne. And what was really quite amazing is, because I've done wall drawings before, it's quite a huge undertaking, so I needed help. And so 5 volunteers helped me draw the wall drawing, and I had to let go of my preciousness. They hadn't really drawn much before, and so I felt like I was teaching them how to draw. But the gym doesn't distinguish between anyone. Anyone can come to our gym. It's $2. We don't even check how much people put in. It doesn't matter. And the same thing with the wall drawing. People, coming along, and I was teaching them how to draw, and I wasn't excluding them. They weren't that great, but it didn't matter. It was the involvement of the wall drawing, and that was a really beautiful sort of unexpected thing, that it fitted in sort of conceptually with the actual sport in the gym and within my art. I thought that was pretty amazing, actually. It was good.
And I was just thinking, for me, I think the thing that surprised me the most was I actually enjoyed the process, and I hate to say this, more than the photography. I probably spent 80% of the time hanging out and talking to people within the community of Redfern, and 20% of the time shooting. And normally it's the other way around, and I think maybe that's because I come from a press background, where I just rush into places, take lots of photos, rush out, and then rush somewhere else. But this particular time I just got to enjoy the process, and I really loved that. So I think I took away more than I realised at the time. was a really great experience for me. It also it broke down a few sort of images of what I actually thought Redfern was about too, because getting to know the people, and that's why I think I was happy that this came out in a positive way, because even though the block has been troubled in the past, it's sort of going through a really sort of nice stage at the moment where, they're rebuilding the whole block, and it was just valuable being able to spend time there and get to know what was going on.
If I could just have one more question to Kirsten as the director, knowing how exciting and challenging and rewarding that area is. When you come to actually evaluating this program, the artists have their whether it's shaped, formally or informally, their set of criteria, what would be success. From your perspective, in terms of this project, was there a difference between what you were hoping for and what has happened? Is there a difference, or has it achieved what you had hoped?
It's a very good question. Some projects have a slow burn, and I think this is probably one of them. I've said right from the start that this exhibition was unashamedly political, that we wanted to get greater exposure of women in sport. We wanted to also have a fantastic contemporary art experience, but that we did have an agenda behind it, and hence doing a forum like this and a girls' breakfast and, a number of pieces of work that we've built into it. In terms of my expectations for the exhibition outcome, look, I'm delighted. It's a wonderful exhibition. It's been incredibly critically well received, and that's always what you sign off on when you're a gallery director, whether the press like it, sad to say. Audience also have really responded to it as well. I think things that we'd like to see, that there is more conversation about women in sport. We've got media for this in the sports media, which is just, we're an art centre, it's ridiculous. I did an interview on Grandstand. I could have spent that, if I'd bet every single thing I owned, I would have said I would never do an interview on Grandstand. And, I'm quoted talking about women in sport. But that's an exposure that not only does the centre get, but these topics have only got because it is so unusual to do an exhibition around this. Alex Blackwell, who was our keynote speaker this morning, was interviewed in MX because this exhibition is coming, so they were saying to hook it onto. So these recordings will go out, and I think that that it will snowball. So I'd like to hope, I don't know how you ever measure it, but I'd like to hope that we have made some small difference in providing greater exposure for women's sport and women's sporting issues. And the question though, that the one thing that did disappoint me, and you said, was there any surprise? We could not get a cent of corporate sponsorship for this, not a cent, and that really surprised me, because I thought this one's gold. I would have never bet I talked on Grandstand, but I would have bet I could have got money for this, and we didn't even get any interest. Half the time people wouldn't even reply to things, so that really surprised me. Now, having learnt more about the women's sporting world, as we all have, it probably surprises me a little bit less. It does kind of show how hard women's sports people have it. They really are, and it's a topic that we're exploring tomorrow as well. But to be honest, that really surprised me. I would have thought this was just the one. That even though we're in Liverpool, this was going to be the one that people would say, yes, I want to invest in that. But even areas that are pitching towards women, I don't know whether they just couldn't see that the arts could help their conversation, or it is just generally hard for women and sport together to get any corporate support. So that was my disappointment. But that's just because I've got to get the budget to run each year. In terms of the exposure, it's been great. We done? Well, we've just hit 4:30, so that's a perfect time to finish. I want to really thank everybody who's spoken today. Jenny, Richard and Tony, thank you for your time. I hope you got some insight into it. I certainly did, and now I'm desperate to have a boxing ring and do art boxing. Art boxing. We could really sell that with the easels, and you could do still life drawing. That'd be great.
Go Tony.
Yeah, Tony, that'd be fantastic. That's the extension of the project that I've been looking for.
I'm trying not to roll my eyes.
We also have... Yes.
This whole thing, not to thank everyone, because you're our house arts, because it's been, today I've been to a lot of sporting conferences and workshops, and I think the calibre of people that you've had is absolutely brilliant.
And I just think that maybe with having some runs on the board, using our sporting terminology, maybe it might be a bit easier next year.
Yep.
But just to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen.
It's been put in because, you know, it's very easy to say what's wrong in everything in life. People don't often say enough what's right and to thank people. So, you know, thank you for putting this on and thank you for putting up such quality speakers. They've been fantastic.
Thank you. I'm glad, and I hope I'll see lots of people tomorrow. Which is also going to be a fantastic day. The galleries are all still open. For those of you who have not yet seen the exhibition, we have in residency De Quincy Dance Company, who have developed a series of pieces that are happening in the gallery space, responding to the works and to the exhibition. They're absolutely beautiful, and it's lovely to have movement. We were told very firmly by sporting people, and I agree, that we couldn't just have a static exhibition. If you're doing sport, people have to be doing things as well, and I think that's very true. So please take some time to enjoy those, and hopefully I'll see many of you again tomorrow. Thank you.